he was a person in this community that I think people did not really understand how deeply heartfelt and concerned he was about his neighbors, the people who live here, and the things he wanted to make sure that he was able to achieve for them. Both his time on the county board and locally here on the Park District. I think he was at three years.
4.
It's 4 years, right? One term. Yeah, one term. But it was a partial term. So
Yeah, I took his seat after.
Right, he was appointed. So it was about a little over 3 years. And, you know, Phil brought a different perspective to the park board at the time and opened up some eyes, certainly opened my eyes to perhaps not being so narrow and broadening your view, not just about the park's mission for recreation and open space, but preservation. And I think preservation was one of the things that he felt was really the most important thing he could give as a legacy. And so he is going to be severely missed by this community, and just a terrific guy, and I'm going to miss him.
Mm-hmm. I echo your sentiments, and you know, Phil had a great vision for this entire community, and that was everything from the Fabian Parkway Bridge to the Fox River Bike Trail, making all the connecting points throughout the entire Tri-Cities. Huge fan of Batavia, and as we know, he was our partner in purchasing some properties on Route 25 to create the open space to help us with our mission. So he will be missed terribly, and another vision of his was to take an old Wonder Bread truck and convert it into a trolley. And as we know, that he had gifted it to the Park District years and years ago, and then the city took it over, and then we just recently, in the last 4 years, took it back on. And with that, we made a promise to the city that we would program the trolley, and we would also have it available Sunday for rentals, for wedding parties, for maybe house tours, history tours, you know, special events like parades. So actually, it was a part of his funeral service as well. So you don't see Eric in a suit every day. It was a special day.
Very appropriate.
Next. And on a lighter note, much lighter note, this is Commissioner Dorsey's orientation day with the Park District.
Wow. I just drove around with Jim and Ralph Voris in Ralph's car.
I didn't even get it.
And I didn't get any food either.
Actually, I think gelato was in it.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
So we gave Commissioner Dorsey a true taste of the Batavia Park District. We toured approximately a dozen parks and drove by many of the facilities, talked about the capital projects that have been done along the way, current projects, special events. And we were thrilled by how many people would stop and wave at the trolley.
Well, because you don't just see a trolley walk down the street.
We had people taking pictures. They'd take their cell phones and they'd take pictures. I mean, everybody, you know, felt like, you know, local celebrities. It was just a neat little ride throughout town. And I really think Eric has done a great job, him and his staff, of gussying up the trolley.
Looks great.
You know, there are things like this bumper that were added. Petermet had certain standards that they wanted to see, so we didn't just put it up to insurance standards. We made sure it was still classy and kept the integrity of the trolley. So, so yeah, next. So Commissioner Dorsey had a chance to meet a lot of different staff members. He didn't have a chance to meet the lifeguards who received the 5-star audit, but it was the day after we received the audit, so we just received that on Thursday of last week. But you can imagine how proud staff is. Last year was the first time we'd ever received a 5-star audit. We'd received 4-star before, and then we received 2 5-star audits. So there was a lot for this team of Quarry lifeguards to live up to, knowing the past history. So, and being so early on in the season too. You know, we've only been open 3 weeks for, you know, the auditors to come, and they come anonymously. They don't tell us when they're coming, and they film our staff, and they watch the different procedures. So there's a lot of pressure on the line every single day, making sure that their eyes are on the water and that they're creating the rescues, but then on top of it, they're being judged and graded. Right, next. we have, dun, 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 been nominated for a second year in a row as a Chicago Tribune Top Workplace.
Outstanding.
I should have timed it a little bit better with staff reports. So I'm like, I was good. They don't know yet. But so we're thrilled. The employees workplace survey has gone out to full-time, part-time, and some seasonal staff. They have to work a certain amount of hours to qualify to be able to fill out the survey, or else they really wouldn't know what the culture at the Park District is like if they're only here a few hours a week. And so we're really tickled pink that we have another opportunity at this. So next. So this is not somebody's backyard. Well, actually, this picture may be because it is a stock photo, but this is one of the inflatables that you'll see at this year's Windmill City Fest. So if you recall last year at the festival, I had decided along with staff that we were no longer going to have the Windy City Amusements Carnival on site. They would not cooperate with our criminal background checks, and we have issue with that. So we're going with Record a Hit Company, who has 8 different inflatables that they're going to bring on site. So they're fun things. One's called a high ball, where it's this bouncing game where you have to get the ball over the net into a hoop. It's a little bit of trampoline, volleyball, basketball. We have things for the little guys. Everything's signage is going to, marketing team has been working. There's going to be signage that says what the appropriate age is for each ride. We're selling wristbands in advance so people can get great discounts ahead of time. And we have a separate activity. It's called the Quad Power Jump. It's currently at Swedish Days, and it's the biggest hit at Swedish Days. It's where the kids and adults can get harnessed, and you can do flips on a trampoline and bounces and fun things that you can't do if you're not harnessed. So we're really excited to bring this to the Batavia community.
Now, will this company's staff be manning these? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Dean, did you want to add anything to that?
So they run it, they're running it, that's not up to,
That is correct. Each one of the inflatables comes with an operator or an attendant, depending on how you want to look at
Okay.
it. So Record Hill will be providing staff for them. So they'll be monitoring their inflatables.
got it.
And then come nighttime, we just turn the generator off, deflates.
But we are going to have lights. We're going to rent a lighting system too, since the carnival was always lit up because
It's a carnival.
that's what carnivals do. So we're going to hire or rent some lighting fixtures so that way we can run it later into the night.
Are these gonna be located where the carnival was
Mhm.
before? Okay, so along
Yep.
the street there, right?
On the
Right,
street.
right in front of the food and all that.
McDonald's and that, right. So
Yeah.
something new that has changed is the layout for this year's Windmill City Festival. Where actually, we are putting inflatables and it's called the Kid Zone, Fun Zone. We are putting them on Houston Street, where the carnival was, but we're also expanding the alcohol containment area. We're working really closely with the police department on not such a tight corridor for the alcohol, because
It gets packed.
really hot, it gets really packed,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't create a good situation when there's so many people, especially Saturday night.
Are you
So-
going to expand the serving area too?
No, the serving area is going to be the same,
Okay.
but
But
the
then people can
actual.
move out of the
But they
tent
can
then
move
once
away
they're.
from
Yep, they
okay.
can actually, they'll be able to have alcohol from up until the museum when you're on the Riverwalk.
Oh.
And then you can walk up the stairs. You can't have it in the museum, so we'll have that signage that shows people where to go. And then across Houston Street, right by the museum. And then on the opposite side of the sidewalk, so on the side of the sidewalk where McDonald's
McDonald's
is,
and-
people can go up until that point. So people actually can have alcohol where the games are. And then all the way down to Island Avenue, and then the rest of it's pretty much what it was before. But it just really opens up,
It's more
gives
like
some breathing room.
Naperville's Rib Fest, a much
Mhm.
bigger area for you to be able to have.
Exactly.
It's a good idea.
And then we're able to sprinkle in sponsors and food booths, and we're not having the carnival food booths anymore. Whew. It'll be, the chamber is helping with the food booths. So they're going to be hand-selected food booths. You know, they want to get an X amount of variety of Mexican food, of Italian food, and they're not going to have a lot of duplication. So it's really exciting, new changes.
Yeah.
We're testing it out. The police department's on board, brand new police chief, Dan Yule. He's really excited, and Sean Mazza is already in contact. and they're really open-minded.
Great.
Yep. So we have amongst us a Main Street board member, just took place early June. And so Katie, along with two others, were just inducted onto the Batavia Main Street Board. And then also I'd like to mention that Dean is the president of the Batavia Rotary right now too.
Ooh.
Well, I'm fast forwarding to July.
Yes.
By the time that our next board meeting comes.
I will.
So I love to see the community leadership. I always encourage, if there's an open seat, for people to apply for it, to run for it. And I really think it's important that I'm not the only face in the community, that we have all these other faces out in the community and active. And I think they've done a great job of representing the Park District.
Great.
All right, Jim had mentioned the second Fridays in downtown Batavia. We are in a partnership with Batavia Main Street. I thought it was a smooth transition. So our museum is a piece of that. And Main Street really got the concept from First Fridays in Aurora. It works out really well at River's Edge. And I think it's something that's going to be around for a few years. It's really working out well. Next. And as I mentioned earlier, but for you folks at home, there's a ribbon cutting tomorrow beginning at 5 o'clock with the Batavia Historical Society for the Depot Museum Expansion Project. So it should be a great time, and it'll be a great way to kick off the fundraising effort. So this is a beautiful picture. The photographer is captured by Lorraine Photography. But this also brings up the Bulldogs Unleashed topic. So the Parks Foundation, the School Districts Foundation, and the Library Foundation are all getting ready, amped up for Bulldogs Unleashed 2.0. And that will kick off, embarking on the project, that will kick off next summer. But I would love to just do the teaser now and more information later.
Great.
All right. This picture came from Commissioner Gray. This is her little one, Andy, testing out the Prairie Path Park, the new playground there. And next. And this is way before the project was finished, obviously, but this is the gravity rail. And we have a video to show you and the folks at home what the gravity rail is going to look like when it's done. It's a treat, so enjoy
There's
that.
Leo again.
Oh, hi, Leo.
Pause. 1 second.
Gotta get it to that screen.
Thank you.
There we go.
And play.
Can you move your arrow down to the bottom of the screen?
That'll be John.
I'll be able to hear them.
The gravity rail was fun. Yeah, because it was fast. It can swing across the whole playground. I can ride it all day long. It was awesome.
So when will that be ready?
I'm just wondering what it is.
Miracle says that we will be receiving the carriage unit, the part that rides on the rail in July.
Okay,
An undetermined date in July.
okay, sometime in July, okay.
Sometime in July.
Terrific.
And it will be installed by the Miracle reps, not our contractors, so.
Okay.
yeah.
What's the What's the weight limit on it?
400 pounds is what
Yeah, I think
Mark said.
it was 300 or 400 pounds. It's
Okay.
pretty good, yeah.
I'm good, okay.
So I can ride on it.
I'm sure it'll be tested.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So I wanted to leave it on that note because it's something to look forward to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
that's great.
Yeah.
Thanks for the report. Next on the agenda is the old business 12A Capital Development Plan Progress Report.
Well, very quickly, we talked about the Prairie Path and Fiddler Playgrounds are both now open. Landscaping is done. Just a few little turf restoration things to finalize. Both are being used heavily, and we're glad to see that. The East Side Center parking lot project, we are meeting with Engineering Resource Associates first week of July in order to view the concept plans and begin to move that project forward. Once we do, we review the concepts and kind of make a choice, then they're going to have to take all of that information, digest it, and then get it into a plan that can go to the city for informal review and then back to
How much
us.
of the plan right now, Jim, is compensatory storage?
We don't know that.
Well, I mean, how much are they engineered in concept to,
We haven't seen anything yet
from ES?
from ERA yet, so I can't answer that exactly.
right.
I think we're hoping that there won't be much at all.
Right,
Yeah, that we're going to be able to just take everything and take it right out to the street.
okay.
Yeah. And then last right now, what we're working on is the HVAC replacement project for the 2 gym units here at the Civic Center and the big AC unit in Shannon Hall, both of which are well past their sell-by dates. Specs are underway. Our engineer from AMSCO, Engineering in Downers Grove, was here today, and he and Gary climbed up just as it quit raining and just got down just before it rained again, so they were very lucky. We are going to be releasing that bid on July 18th, opening it on August 1st. We'll be asking you to award that at the August board meeting, and installation will be the first week of November, because there is a giant waiting time for any kind of HVAC equipment, which is 10 to 12 weeks sometimes. It's,
Longer.
yeah, it's very
Especially this time of year.
frustrating. Yeah, but it's one of those things
How do they build it once they?
So you'll have it for
No,
winter.
because you can't, there's nothing on the
conditioning for
shelf
winter.
anymore. Everything's
Yeah.
built to
Probably
order.
waiting part of it.
Order them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now there's the summer slam of all the schoolwork and all the municipal
Right.
work, so, yeah,
So those are the projects in the hopper right now.
great. Thank you. So next on the agenda is 13A, award of the contract for the Community Needs Assessment Services. So Allison, we have a visitor here tonight, so I'll let you introduce, and then I'll take action with the board, and then we can have discussion. How's that?
Sure. I did include in your board packet the actual survey proposal from Acuity Research and Insights of Evanston. And you do at your placements also have my recommendation. As I mentioned there in the recommendation letter, that there were a total of 3 market research companies that were contacted. According to Park District Code, we don't necessarily have to go through the formal public bid process, so we can hand select the vendors that we'd like to interview. And Acuity Research and Insights came out on top. And I would like to introduce Jeff Andreessen, who's here tonight. And Jeff, thank you for coming from Evanston. We appreciate it. And Jeff and I had a chance to talk at great length about what our objectives are for this project. And Jeff, would you like to give the board a little insight?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me out here. We're excited to have the opportunity to work for you and partner with you in the community research. Very briefly, Acuity Research, as Allison said, is headquartered in Evanston. We're a full-service research firm, so all of the work is done by our staff. We've been doing community surveys like this for over 30 years. Acuity's been around for 2 years, but prior to that, our team was known as Richard Day Research, and our group has been doing work for a lot of your neighbors of late, Fox Valley, St. Charles, Bartlett. We're wrapping a survey up. In fact, I'm presenting the results to the Naperville Park District in 2 nights. And we do a lot of work for the IEPD. Started doing work for them in 2002, and then have done a number of studies since then, fairly recently, including one, and I have some examples of these that I can share with you just so you can get a sense of what the deliverables look like. But one of the studies we did for IEPD was a employment and revenue analysis of agencies around the state, including Batavia. So the Batavia report is included. For the Batavia Park District survey, what we're proposing is to conduct a community-wide survey, literally, meaning every household within the Park District boundaries would be invited to participate in the survey. And they'll be allowed to participate at least one of 3 ways. We'll send out postcard invitations to them of informing them of the survey and giving them a website where they can complete it online and a phone number where they can call our offices to conduct the survey over the phone if they'd like. And then after we've gotten the initial response, we'll send up a sample follow-up letter and hard-printed questionnaire to a sample of the non-respondents. Again, giving them a third option to complete a paper survey and send it back, but also to remind them that they can complete it online and by phone. And then finally, when we've received the initial responses back from that follow-up survey, we'll then reach out by phone to a sample of the remaining non-respondents and try and get them to complete the survey one of those 3 ways as well. So we think it's important, given the objectives of this research and to really understand the needs of the community and their expectations from the Park District, to give every household the opportunity to provide their input. Our goal is to have a minimum of 300 respondents from around the district participating in the survey. And we take a lot of time and give a lot of attention to make sure that the sample that we receive back resembles the population in the district in terms of their demographics. One of the things that a lot of community surveys tend to fall short on is incorporating everybody's opinion, especially non-users of the Park District. The users of the Park District, the participants in the program, the people who buy passes to your facilities are often more than happy to provide their feedback, but the ones who don't really know you, aren't really connected with you, don't really use you, are the ones who are harder to reach. And we think it's even more important to understand what their needs are and what their preferences are, because that's your growth opportunity within the community. So when we get our sample back, we make sure that our respondents reflect the population in terms of where they live, their gender, their age, their race, their ethnicity, and whether or not they have children, 18 or under, in the household. If we have to, we weight the data to make sure that it matches census data as recent as 2015 census estimates. And we can target our sample and our data very closely to the Park District boundaries, knowing that not all of Batavia is in the Park District, and there are parts of other communities that are in the Park District. We want to make sure that the responses that we're getting back are truly your constituents and your residents and the population that you serve. And then when we analyze the data and present the results, we really try and think about what the results mean, rather than just saying X% feel this way and Y% want something else. We really identify for you who's more likely in the community to have those opinions, who's more supportive, who's more opposed, and then most importantly, to understand why. We really try and understand the why behind the numbers so that we can give you more direction and more insight as you're leveraging that information to make important decisions, not just the board, but also staff. And then finally, we partner with a number of consulting firms who do strategic planning, master plans, and should you explore that option in the next couple of years, we would be happy to coordinate with those agencies or those firms. Like I said, we work with them fairly regularly to make sure that the findings from the community survey are fully leveraged into their analysis of your facilities, of your programs, of your opportunities as part of the strategic and master plan.
So the sample size is the entire community, and the questionnaires or the questions, or the respondents are not anonymous?
They are anonymous.
They are anonymous.
They're anonymous.
But they're not random.
They're anonymous to you. We will not
Oh,
identify
no,
them.
no, right, I understand that. But I mean, you obviously know who they are because you're sending them reminders. So,
Right.
so as far as the validity or the number, I mean, every community is different, of course, but I mean, the rate of return that you see in communities about our size, is it?
Yeah, for a district the size of Batavia, 300 is ample. I don't think I included the Lake County Forest Preserve District. We've done 5 or 6 surveys for Lake County Forest Preserve District. We've helped them pass 5 consecutive referenda for acquisition and capital efforts. For Lake County, we do 600 surveys across the entire county with as much diversity as there is countywide. Most statewide surveys are 1,000, 1,200 surveys. So for a community the size of Batavia.
But if you're going to send, I guess what I'm asking is if you're going to send out 16,000 or whatever the number is in terms of our actual population, you would expect 300 back, or you'd expect more than that?
I expect a minimum of 300 back.
Right, okay.
How do you, you have an internet, you have a phone, and you have the follow-up with the mail. How do you make sure folks aren't double dipping between the phone and the internet?
Every case has an ID number that we assign to it. When we put it on we put it, kind of hide it in the footnote on the paper survey. When they go online, the postcard has their individual PIN. Once they enter that PIN, they can't go back online and do the survey a second time. And we know not to call them, and we know not to send them a questionnaire because they've already responded.
Okay. Thank
Now,
you.
if they take the card out of their neighbor's mailbox and use their PINs, that's out of our control,
Right.
but hopefully that doesn't happen.
Okay. Any other questions?
So, and thanks for coming all the way down here. I know it's not a direct route. So, you expect or hope at least 300 to be returned. And what happens if 200 return?
That's when we start our phone calls.
Okay, and so you're not going to do any survey, you're not going to do any conclusions until you have at least 300
Absolutely.
people? Okay. And then with the number of people that we have in our area, is there a percent, is there a plus or minus accuracy, margin of error that is with, if you have 300 people versus 1,000 people that
Sure.
return, is it about the same? Or is
No,
it
no,
much
no.
better?
For 300 people, if I had a calculator, I could give it to you precisely. For 300 people, it's probably around plus or minus 7%.
And then, I'm not reading, I don't know, we have something in front of us here.
Sure.
So maybe Allison, maybe you can help
Yeah.
later on or after we. So it says that you have a random sample, and then you have an all household option 1 and all household option 2.
Mhm.
And there's prices associated with each one of those. Is that saying that if 300 people respond, then that's the price that we pay? And if you have 1,000 people respond, then that's the price we pay? Or are we going into the contract with those amounts?
No, if we get more than 300 people, for example, we just did a survey in Naperville. It was a larger sample because it's a much larger community. But we went about 40 or 50 cases over the target number for Naperville. So if we have a great response, that'll be terrific. We'll probably cap it at 350 or 360, somewhere in there. It's a trade-off. If we have a great response, that means we have to do fewer phone calls. So we're processing more cases, but we're saving money on the phone calls. So it tends to be a wash.
And my recommendation is for the approach number 2, option number 2, where there's a postcard sent to every Park District resident with a follow-up mail survey sent to the random sampling of 3,000 residents, in addition to 3 focus groups.
Yes, I did not mention the focus group. Prior to doing the survey, we would do focus groups with local stakeholders, community representatives or neighborhood groups or sports groups, as well as a focus group discussion with residents to, again, understand beforehand what their concerns are, what they value most, what they would like to see, what needs they feel are unmet, so that we can incorporate that with your feedback, with staff feedback, when we design the questions to be tested community-wide.
So if you get 600, let's say there's option 2, then you won't do any phone calls after that? It'll just be,
If we get 600, we won't need to do phone calls, and some of those people will be people who say, hey, I'd like to do this over the phone anyway.
okay.
There really isn't much difference in terms of how people answer, whether they do it by phone or by mail or online.
I guess the question I'm asking is, when you get your minimum for whatever you're doing, you're not gonna try to get more information after that? You're saying, we hit the minimum with the electronic media, we're not gonna follow up with another 500 homes?
We'll keep going until we hit our budget.
Okay.
Not hit your demographic needs?
Well, our demographic needs we're monitoring as we go along.
Okay.
So if we see, for
Okay.
example, that, and this rarely happens, but if we see, we're not, we've got 300 people, but we've only got 10 people from the northeast quadrant of the district, then we will target our follow-up
Okay.
letters and our phone calls to those who are
Okay.
in that segment.
Okay.
So Allison, at our places tonight, you have a recommendation for an award at $48,000, correct? If I read this correctly. 40,800. So what is that based on? Because it differs from the,
Sure, so it's based on page 6 of the proposal, all household option 2. And under focus groups, you'll see there is a cost for 3 focus groups. Actually, it's on page 3. It's a little buried in the 4th paragraph. For 3 focus groups, it's a cost of $7,400.
got it, okay. Any further questions?
Focus groups will be held in random areas or all in one same place?
Focus groups ideally would be held here, since we'll have free
With
use of the
you leading
facility,
them.
and people will, it'll be
Right.
easy for everybody
Them, right.
You would
to
lead
get
it.
to. We will recruit, the people will need the list of the stakeholders, the contact names and information. We'll recruit them, we'll work with you on developing the discussion guide to make sure that the objectives that you need coming out of the focus groups are being met. I'll moderate them, we'll record them, we'll transcribe them, and then we'll submit a summary report of the key findings along with the transcripts for board and staff to review as a prelude to the design of the community-wide survey.
For the focus groups, I think they're a good idea. It's also, you really don't know what's going to happen. You call one and 2 people show up.
Mhm.
So is there a minimum criteria,
Right.
number of people you need, number of, feedback, if nobody says anything before, to say this was a successful focus group or not?
The ideal number is between 8 and 12, so we recruit between 15 and 18 to get
So you
8 to 12.
And you
who
talked
actually
about
show up.
incentives and stuff in here.
We're having this on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, come.
We're calling people directly, because there are some people that we want to make sure we have a good mix. So if we have 12 people who come and they all have passes to the quarry and they all participate in 3 programs, that's great, but I'd like to have a mix of people who aren't as active or aren't as involved, so that we can get a fuller representation of different experiences and perceptions of the district. So when we call people to invite them, and when we call them, we screen them to see what's your involvement been with the park district, how long have you lived in the community, so that we've got a good mix of people. We want to hear different opinions, not just the same opinion amplified 8 or 12 times.
When you break down the data, do you do it, you said by quadrant or, a northeastern section? Would we be able to see that, where the respondents are coming from in our community?
So when we provide the data, we'll use GIS mapping to basically give you like a pinpoint image of the district boundaries and where our respondents came from, so that you could see how they distribute geographically. But we'll need to work with the district in terms of identifying what the boundaries are that make sense. If you have service areas that you kind of work with, we'll want to make it something that's relevant to you, so that when we're saying northeast, it's your definition of northeast, not our definition of northeast.
Get your sticky dots out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then another question is, do you make sure that basically your samples or your respondents reflect the community in which, the people live? So are you making sure that your demographics are kind of matching up with our community so that everybody kind of has a voice?
Yes, that's the comparison to the census data that I was mentioning. And we take it down to the census block groups. So it's not just Batavia proper residents and then, other communities. We're looking at groups of blocks to reflect the district boundaries and the residents who live within those block groups.
Cool.
Great. Any further questions? Well, Jeff, thanks for coming. We're going to vote here in a second, and I have several clients in Evanston, so I understand there's no good way to get from Batavia to Evanston, so I appreciate you coming out tonight.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.
I do need to take those reports back, though.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So keep them all.
See if we can find out which one it is.
Yeah, we kept one to see if you statistically can find out which one it is.
Oh, it's done already. Excellent. I like that.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to award the contract for the Community Needs Assessment Services to Acuity Research and Insights of Evanston in the amount of $40,800.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Tillman, second by Gray. Any further discussion?
I would state something that you said, that people who don't use the Park District in town, anybody who pays taxes uses the Park District in town. That's just my feeling, in some way, shape, or form, because they have property, and when their property values go up or down based on what we do, they use the Park District. So I just, it's a pet peeve of mine.
Well, but I think maybe the distinction is passive and active recreation.
Exactly,
Right,
yes,
right.
Right.
yes.
All right, we have a
That's what I
motion
said.
and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Shelley, please call the roll.
Tillman.
Aye.
Gray.
Aye.
Riley.
Aye.
Dorsey.
Aye.
Callahan.
Aye, motion carries. Jeff, thanks very much.
Congratulations.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
I'll be in
So do
touch
we.
tomorrow.
6 o'clock.
Quick turnaround.
All right, so
you.
next item on the agenda is item 13B, award of the contract for chemical weed control services. Now, these are really important things.
Yes.
Very exciting.
So Director Locker is enjoying a much-needed trip to see family in Seattle, so he's briefed me fully on this. So the recommendation is for a one-year contract with an optional 3-year provision based on performance. And I think it's important to mention with this weed control contract that Roundup is not a part of this contract. There's been a lot of controversy surrounding Naperville Park District and other cities and villages concerning the herbicide they call it an all-kill herbicide. This is a low-risk chemical. It is not made of the same product as Roundup. In fact, this is as close to green as you can get while still using chemicals that can still eventually kill the weeds.
That are effective, yeah. Okay.
And actually, what's neat about this is to point out in Eric's memo from 2016 and 2017, the value of per park average is actually better to go with bulk, adding in more parks than it is to have fewer parks.
Sure.
So you'll see it's $860 for so an additional 7 parks from last year versus the $1,089 from
Okay.
per park.
So I entertain a motion to award the contract for chemical weed control services to the most responsible bidder, True Green of West Chicago, Illinois, in the amount of $24,102.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Tillman, second by Gray.
I would point out that, and just want to make sure, it states here it's a one-year contract with 3-year provision, and there is no increase per year, right?
Correct.
Built into
No
this.
increase.
Okay.
Correct.
The only thing I would add is to stave off, obviously, and it's not just Naperville, it's school districts, park districts, it's all over the place. And I think it's important that there is a balance between true control and a more passive approach to weeds. And what we're hearing from our community is they don't like the passive approach to weeds, they don't like the weeds. So I think we should have a press release of some sort. It could be a graphic, it could be some type of Facebook post, just to let people know what we're doing, so that they're not surprised, but also to educate, to ensure that they recognize that we are doing this because we've been requested to do so.
In that, we probably should also say the effect that this has when we put it down on animals. Because people, if you put down stuff, they don't want to walk their dogs on it without knowing whatever. So if it affects the dogs the first day.
Public service
if it doesn't-
announcement.
Right, doesn't affect the dog the second or whatever, we should, if we're going to put something out that we're putting stuff down, people are going to have questions about it, so we might want to answer some of those.
And what's nice about this is spot spraying, so this is in flower beds, it's not necessarily the.
I get it.
The generic,
But-
yeah.
But
to
people
your
are going to
point-
have questions about,
Right.
my dog goes in the
Yeah.
bush, and
Yeah, but as a public service announcement per se, I think it would.
I think people will appreciate too that we're making efforts to not use Roundup. So
Mhm.
I think that's on a lot of people's, their concerns
Sure.
about the side effects that those have on the environment.
Yep.
And I'd like to thank the park board for phasing back in all the weed control, because we've seen what happens when we have to cut it from the budget. And the community spoke and we listened, and they really want pristine parks.
Yep. Shall I please call the roll?
Tillman.
aye.
Gray.
Aye.
Riley.
Aye.
Dorsey.
Aye.
Callahan.
Aye, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the award of the contract for the prescribed burn services. So these are our semi-annual burns at our prairies, for the most part. In this particular case, this is what?
Having helped Eric with this one to some degree, we have for a number of years, since we obtained the property out at Savannah, the Fiddler Farm property, that has been burned as often as is possible. It's not always possible every year to burn because of conditions.
Sure.
This contract takes that into account, obviously, but this would add in all of the areas that we have never been able to contain. Even small areas such as Prairie and Latham Park,
Right.
where we have some naturalized areas that we did almost 10 years
So
ago.
this is multiple sites.
This is multiple sites, absolutely.
And this is great for weed control as well.
This
that
is,
new
yeah,
area
that's really one of
or
the
areas.
major significant pieces of this, is
Gotta be
that,
careful with calling things weeds.
no, that's true. But like South Mill Creek with
Non-native
its large
plants.
naturalized area, so,
Right.
yeah, this is going to be a very, very good thing for us.
Invasive species?
Yeah,
Invasive species,
non-native.
excellent, much better way to describe it. All right, so I entertain a motion to award the contract for prescribed burn services to the most responsible bidder, Semperfi Land, Inc. of Yorkville, Illinois, in the amount of $24,888.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Gray, by Tillman. I gotta get
And once again, this is
curveball
a
here.
3-year consecutive, or it's a 1 year with a 3-year provision, and there's no
No
increase,
increase.
right?
No increase, correct. The benefit of locking it in for.
Any further
provision.
discussion?
You know, and I think your idea about notifying people, especially if an area has not been burned before. Oh, absolutely. You know,
Yeah.
you tell the people around the neighborhood. that-
By the way, there's going to be a fire in your backyard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like always.
There are, as with the weed spraying, with prescribed burning, there's some extremely stringent regulations. The burn company, the prescribed burn company is required to notify police departments, fire departments, the county, neighbors all get letters. So there's a real specific process that they have to go through for each of the areas. So yeah.
Cool.
Because over the years,
Well,
there's been a lot of issues.
But again, I go back to my comment earlier. As public service and a recognition of being stewards of the environment, I think it's really important to let people know we're doing it, but also why we're doing it.
Yes.
Absolutely. We also inform the fire department too, in case that somebody is passing by or
911,
driving
yeah.
by, so that way they're well aware when they
Sure.
answer the phone.
Well, and I think, Fermilab does it a lot on Farnsworth, so anybody who lives on that side of town sees it a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But, when it's in your backyard, it's a little different.
It is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Shelley, please call the roll.
Gray.
Aye.
Tillman.
Aye.
Riley.
Aye.
Dorsey.
Aye.
Callahan.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, next item on the agenda is the 13D, which is the approval of a temporary license to Craig Fultos for the pedestrian footbridge.
Yes, this is also known as the Peace on Earth Bridge during the holidays. So this is granting a temporary license for Craig Fultos to install, repair, and maintain the lighting system during the holidays that the peace sign is up. And so right now, he has upgraded on his own dime, $2,000 in lighting upgrades. And, well, actually, we, the Park District, paid the lighting contractor, so Craig is going to be reimbursing us. And this guarantees that any work that's done, that we get reimbursed for. So it takes a lot of the liability off of
Okay.
us and onto him.
All right.
And so we are granting him a contract, a temporary license, but we're granting him a license to hire people to do it, not for him
Right.
to go
not for
out
him
on a bridge
personally.
and strap himself under a gurney, go up and out, right?
Right.
Okay.
So, and then that's,
Give me an idea.
that's why there are a lot of indemnification and hold harmless clauses in here that they're packaged in. But it also states in here that he needs to work with us on that, in cooperation with us.
Okay, so I entertain a motion to approve the temporary license to Craig Fultos for the pedestrian bridge, also known as the Peace Bridge.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Tillman, second by Dorsey. Throwing me more curveballs. Here we
Getting
go.
fancy.
8:20.
Any further discussion?
And temporary license here is through 2009, beginning of 2019, yes?
1 year, 3-year option. No.
No increase.
It's like an 18-month thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just,
All right,
putting it
Shelley,
out there.
please call the roll.
Tillman.
Aye.
Dorsey.
Aye.
Riley.
Aye.
Gray.
Aye.
Callahan.
Aye, motion carries.
And just a little side note, there's a Peace Bridge signage that's right next to it. And we are going to be redoing that signage, so
Oh.
adding in the new Park District logo, but also putting Craig's name in there. Since now we have something more formalized in
Yeah,
place with
great.
him, to give him the recognition that he deserves for helping us with this project, since it was really his vision.
So next item on the agenda is item number 14, Fox Village Special Rec.
Yes, in your packets, there's information about a hoops tournament for the Fox Valley Special Rec Foundation. It's July 30th from 9 to 3 at the Vaughn Athletic Center. $80 per team, up to 4 players per team. So everyone, those watching at home, board, staff, you are invited. And the Fox Valley Special Rec information came back about the pork chop dinner. They were actually $5,000 lower this year than they were in previous years.
Oh.
So they're trying to figure out what they can do to make things more efficient. Weather was a factor. They do have a drive-through. So, but they're always just challenging themselves to do better.
Yeah, great. Still a good fundraiser. Okay, next on the agenda is item 15, Batavia Parks Foundation.
I have nothing to add from our, do you want to add anything?
I have a positive update. The Parks Foundation did drop off a check in the amount of $53,000 for our leadership program. So now we can kind of reimburse the Park District for the expenses with our kindergarten enrichment scholarships, our kids club scholarships. We had actually created a revenue in, revenue out fund because we didn't have that money. But now that the Park District has that, we can actually award the scholarships that we need to for the kids,
Okay.
the people that need it the most.
Does that make it whole? There's no more left over from the foundation?
Yep.
Okay, good.
We are complete.
Cool.
It's a good situation.
Okay, so we really only have 2 items remaining. One is executive session to review the executive session meeting minutes, and then after that, to come back out and make an approval of Resolution 241 to approve those the release of any closed meeting minutes. So at this time, I will entertain a motion to enter into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Tillman, second by Gray. Shelley, please call the roll.
Tillman.
Aye.
Gray.
Aye.
Riley.
Aye.
Dorsey.
Aye.
Callahan.
Aye, motion carries. So we will go into executive session, and I want to thank everyone for joining us this month. We will have one item of business afterwards, and it will simply be to acknowledge the work we do in executive session with respect to releasing closed session meeting minutes. So we'll see you next month. Thank you.